In this video, we'll be having a look at People HR's automated workflow tool, Ripple. Workflows, or ripples, can be used to automate business processes. From a HR perspective, this could include everything from automating the new starter onboarding process, managing absence and triggering alerts, right the way through to the leaver process. Workflows can be triggered automatically within People HR based on events or data, i.e. a new starter is joining, or an absence threshold has been reached, or an employee's probation review date or contract end date is approaching, or an employee's job has been changed, or a new maternity leave has been entered. The automatic nature of these triggers means that users don't have to go looking and checking to see whether anything needs actioning or diarising tasks for the future. People HR will simply notify the user that a task needs to be completed based on the rules configured within the system. So let's have a look at an example. In this case, we're going to have a look at an onboarding workflow. The scenario being here that we have a new starter who needs to complete a series of activities prior to joining the organisation. Tasks might include things that have previously been manual processes, for example, collecting data for the new starter, such as their bank details or their next of kin information, or asking them to read company policies or simply to sign their contract. This can all be automated through People HR. So within People HR, either on the mobile app or the desktop application, I can see the ripples or workflows that I have outstanding from the dashboard. I could have also received a push notification and or an email alerting me to the workflow too. More on that later. So in this workflow, as a new starter, I need to complete this information here. So I need to watch an introduction video. I need to upload my right to work documentation. I need to confirm that I've updated the system with my bank details and contact details. And then lastly, I need to upload my driving license details. These make up the interactive elements of Ripple, i.e. the things that a user actively has to do. Additionally, there can also be activities that happen in the background within the workflow. And to show you those, we're going to go into the admin area of People HR. I've now logged on as a HR user who has access to the admin area of People HR. Within here, I have access to the Ripple menu. This area allows me to configure and create workflows. So let's have a look at the background activities that are happening in line with our onboarding workflow. First of all, it's worth pointing out that this workflow is triggered by a query, which is essentially a report that will run multiple times a day to see, in this case, if any new employees have been added to the system. And when the system finds someone new who falls into that query, it will trigger this series of events. First of all, a mail merge is created by the system. In this case, it's the employee's contract, which, as you can see from the settings here, the employee has access to, as well as their manager. The employee is also required to sign the document, which they can do electronically within People HR. So once the mail merge has been created, the next step is to launch all the interactive elements of the workflow. So the form filling steps that we just saw in self-service, they will be launched so the employee has their task lists complete. The system then creates an email to go to the new starter to inform them they have these tasks to complete. And you can see here that the email can include merged fields. So I've merged in the employee's name and their start date in the email. You could also add attachments to here as well. So if you wanted to include a user guide for how to download the People HR mobile app or something like that, then you could do. Lastly, who the email is to is also set on here as well. So in this case, obviously it's going to the employee, but I could also add additional recipients on here. So we'll CC in their manager. So their manager knows the tasks have been allocated to the new starter. The next step I've added to this workflow is a wait step. In here, the system will wait for a defined period of time. In this case, I've set it to 3 days. So we're going to wait for 3 days for the employee to complete those tasks. After that time frame, the employee will move on to the next step, which is to check to see whether the contract has been signed. And if it hasn't, the last step is to email the employee again to remind them that they have their new starter tasks to complete. Now, this is one of thousands of examples that you could use the Ripple workflow tool for. You might use it to manage absence. So you might have the system send an email to the employee's manager when an employee has returned from a sickness and ask them to complete a return to work. Or you could use it to notify the HR team when an employee has reached a certain sickness absence threshold. You could use it to trigger the probationary review process or when an employee's fixed term contract is due to end. You can even have workflows that relate to custom data fields within the solution. So for example, if you created a custom logbook screen to capture information with regards to company equipment that's been issued, you could use that in the leaver workflow to make sure that you detail the dates the equipment was returned by the employee who's leaving, or have notifications to the IT department when equipment is due for renewal. The opportunities for you to automate processes and create real efficiencies here are endless.